Welcome back. Let me start off by talking about going back to a couple of episodes before where I talked about I should start off a segment talking about people who have been married for a long time and they're getting divorced. It seems like that is going to be a thing because it seems like I don't even have to look far to find this. And let me just point out, I'm not actually researching these things, looking for marriages that fail, but some kind of way they just kind of pop up and find me. And so it seems like it's damn near once every episode. And the latest, and this isn't a new one, this is an oldie but a goodie. When I say an oldie, I guess that means like the last couple of months or so. And this is Gary Owen and his wife. They have been married they've been married since 2003. So this will be the 18th year. So not quite 20 years, but I'm assuming that they have been dating for longer than 2 years. So we can just put them in the 20-year and divorcing club. And again, I am just so confused as to how these marriages, after somebody's been together for damn near 20 years, how they just can't keep it going. What happens at that 20-year mark or leading up to that 20-year mark that just causes things to start on that downward spiral? Well, actually, it's probably not a downward spiral that's just starting. It's probably something that's been going on for years and years and years, and he probably just finally decided to end it. But I'm still curious as to why at that time, why not sooner, and all of that stuff. I guess we'll never know. And for people that don't know, Gary Owen is a comedian who is white, but he is like invited to the barbecue, let's just say that, by brothers and sisters because he talks about things that impact black people. His wife is black. He was in what's that movie that Kevin Hart was it about last night? The movie with Kevin Hart and Megan Good and Gabrielle Union, and they go off somewhere and they're trying to get somebody's trying to get married or something like that. And Gary Owen is like the token white dude in the joint. He seems to always be the token white dude in black movies and stuff, and he has a large black audience. Anyway, can't keep his black wife though, but that sucks. I feel bad for both of them because, man, boy, to be back out in these streets. On a side note, I read a rumor also that Claudia Jordan might have had something to do with it. I mean, Gary Owen's wife blasted out Claudia Jordan and then said Claudia Jordan didn't have anything to do with it. Claudia Jordan said she didn't have anything to do with it. I shouldn't even have mentioned that mess because, this isn't about gossip and rumors and all that stuff. Anyway, forget that. Forget I even said that because I won't edit it out because I just don't care enough. But anyway, let me get into what I want to talk about today. I want to step back again because Father's Day happened over the weekend. So I want to wish all the fathers a happy belated Father's Day. And yeah, I probably would have mentioned this on one of last week's episodes, but I honestly didn't have any idea when it was. I didn't even know it was coming up. The only reason I found out was because a friend of mine called me on Father's Day, and not because of Father's Day, but we were just talking. And in the background, his wife mentioned it. And I was like, oh, it is Father's Day. So that's how I found out. So that's why I didn't mention it earlier. I think it's an important thing to mention, especially considering how little Father's Day is thought of, especially in comparison to Mother's Day. It's like, and I'm probably not the only one that forgot about it, to be honest. And that includes people with kids and even kids with fathers. Fathers just don't get the love that we deserve. Anyway, I'm not a father. As a matter of fact, talking about Father's Day, I remember Reggie back in the day. He was telling me that he read something online about how mothers were co-opting Father's Day as well as like a second Mother's Day. And the thought behind that was that since single mother households don't have a father around, thus the single mother households, um, they don't have a father around, or they're not claiming that there's a father around since they are doing the prime since they have the primary responsibility of raising the child or children. I guess they figure they may as well take Father's Day too. Uh, Whatever. That brings me to one of my pet peeves, actually, though. Um, when people refer to single parent households, it implies or it is assumed that the other parent, usually the father, is nowhere to be found and has no presence in the child's or children's lives. And I think we need to be more careful about how we use and interpret that phrase, because you shouldn't be out there screaming that you're a single mother or something like that when dad is paying his child support, coming to pick up the kids, talking to the kids, doing his job, but you're still out here claiming to be a single mother. You are single and a mother, or single and a father. But when you say I'm a single mother, that gives the impression to people, and I'm not alone in this, it gives the impression to people that you out there doing it by yourself, when sometimes that's not the case. So just a pet peeve, but you know, take it for whatever. I don't care. Anyway, the main reason that Father's Day didn't register and doesn't usually register with me is because my dad is dead. He died when I was 16, and I don't have any kids. And I am very thankful for that. This is not one of those sad joints when I'm just like, oh, I wish I had kids and all of this. No. And I'm not even sad that the old man died. Now, don't get me wrong, though. My dad was the greatest man that I've ever known in my life. So so I'm not talking about him like he's a deadbeat just because I'm not sad or anything like that. It's just that I think enough time has passed. I mean, he died when I was 16. So I think enough time has passed that I'm not like some people at age 50 that goes into a deep depression every Father's Day because dad is gone. I mean, I've had enough time to grieve. And even though he was great, and even though I would love to have conversations with him again and all of that stuff, it's not something that I sit up late at night being depressed about, or sit up during the day being depressed about, or sit up ever being depressed about. And part of the reason for that is because I understand that that would be because of my own selfish things. My dad is in a much better place. I won't go into the details of why he's in a much better place, but I just believe in heaven, and I just believe that there's something better than just living to you 100 years old and be put in a bathtub. And I'll get into being put in the bathtub in a minute. But yeah, I'm not wasting time being depressed over all of that. I choose to save my deep depressions for current events, not stuff in the past. Anyway, anyway, with regard to Father's Day, another thing that's always funny to me is when I go like to the grocery store or something like that on Father's Days in the past. I didn't go out like any this past Sunday, but when I go out on Father's Days, if I used to go to the movies or if I would go to the grocery store, it was like inevitable where somebody out of the kindness of their heart would try to wish me a happy Father's Day. And when I would tell them that I'm not a father, it's like they would look like embarrassed. They would be looking at me like, like, you know how when you see a big woman and she looks pregnant, and somebody will like go up and ask when the baby's due, and then they find out that they're not pregnant. They'd be like, "No, I'm not pregnant." That's the way they be acting when I tell them I don't have kids, that I'm not a father and stuff like that. And well, those two things aren't comparable in any way. The asking a woman if she's pregnant when she's not is way worse. I don't even think the whole thing wishing somebody a happy Father's Day when they're not a father, I don't think that's bad at all. The pregnant thing, that's bad. But it's just funny to me because the looks on the people's faces when I say I don't have kids cracks me up. I've even had like some people say, "Oh, shoot, I'm sorry." Like, what are you sorry for? I mean, shoot, I'm cool. Shoot, I don't need all those obligations. I don't want all those obligations. It's a conscious choice, but that's neither here nor there. But I will say this though, even though I don't have kids, every time I see that commercial where the dude is putting like the old man in the bathtub, it makes me think that I should have probably had at least one. And that one probably should have been a daughter, because you can guilt daughters into doing things for their parents like easier than you can guilt sons into doing stuff. Sons are kind of trifling when it comes to their parents. Uh, I'm a son. Anyway, yeah. Yeah, anyway. But I know way too many I have way too many female friends that are like stressed out because of like all of the weight that their Asian parents put them under and stuff like that. And it's especially a big deal nowadays because shoot, for the demographics of people listening to this podcast, our parents are getting older. And so that means that they're becoming more needy, for lack of a better word. And and even though they're getting older, I'm not even necessarily talking about parents who are like sick and debilitated and all of that stuff. I'm talking about parents who are older but might be healthy, but they just old and cranky and demanding stuff just for the sake of demanding. It's like it's like parents seem, when you get to this age, it seems like parents, it's like they, they treat you like you owe them something because they gave you life. Is now mind you, you didn't ask to be born, but some parents will act like you were begging to be born. Like, man, I just need somebody to give birth to me so I can live this life. And and whatever. Anyway, but going back to this commercial about the man putting the old man in the tub, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that or have any idea what commercial I'm talking about, but it's an insurance commercial. And it's a life insurance commercial, as a matter of fact. And honestly, I don't really know anything else about the commercial. I don't even know what life insurance company they're promoting, which speaks to the effectiveness of the commercial. But the one thing that stands out in the course of that commercial is there is a quick little piece of it where there's a man putting an old man in the bathtub. And I guess the theme of the commercial is that you're doing things for people and stuff like that during the course of your life. And I guess that's why you should get life insurance or whatever. But putting that old dude in the tub, that must resonated with me because I don't want to be that old man. But also, if I do become that old man, it makes me wonder who's gonna put me in the tub and and give me sponge baths and stuff like that. On a side note, I don't even know why it has to be a sponge bath. I don't understand. I don't know. Maybe if you're old and sickly, people use sponges because washcloths might be too abrasive. I just wonder because it seems like only old people get sponge baths or people in hospitals get sponge baths. People sick get sponge baths or old people get sponge baths. Because if sponge baths were that effective, why don't younger, healthier people take sponge baths? I don't hear about people like pulling out sponges when it's time to take a shower or even a bath. I never like went to somebody's house or went to a hotel and they gave me a towel and a sponge. I don't know. Maybe I'm thinking too much about that. I guess I am thinking too much about that. I'm thinking too much about that. Anyway, so I don't have a son to put me in a tub. I do have a nephew though, but that's a lot of weight to put on him, especially considering he's my brother's only son and he'll probably have to put his mom and dad in the bathtub. So the only kid that they have to put him in charge of putting three old people in the tub. That's a lot, man. That's a lot. And the thing about it that's whack is that when he was growing up, I used to make a point of like buying him gifts every year. And when I would give him gifts, I would always give him the gift and tell him, you know, this means that you have to take care of me when I'm old. Now, I didn't say put me in the bathtub, but it was like an overarching take care of me. And he used to always say, I got you. But what else is he gonna say when I'm holding his like birthday present hostage? So of course he was gonna say that. And all of these years later, I seriously doubt that when if I bring that up to him, he's gonna be like, well, yeah, shoot, knowing him, he'll probably be like, yo, is it in the contract somewhere? Is it written? Show me where I signed. So I don't know. I, basically, I guess I'd just be old, dirty, and smelly. Shoot, I know one thing. Shoot, that's motivation right there. I better stay in the gym. Shoot, so I can get in the tub by myself as long as possible. A matter of fact, shoot, keep doing my yoga so I don't break a hip because that's what happens when you try to get in the tub by yourself. You break a hip, and and for the and yeah, I do yoga for real. Yeah, and on that note, don't knock yoga. I highly recommend yoga with Adrian on YouTube. Shout out to her. And shoot, I don't like shouting out people unless they're paying me to shout them out. But yeah, her YouTube series is off the chain. Is and her dog Benji is always in videos, and I like dogs. So anyway, now that I've depressed myself for the day, okay. When I think about Father's Day, though, and this is the real point in all of this, and this is how it applies to dating and all of that stuff, and Mother's Day for that matter, but I guess we'll focus on Father's Day since that's what we're talking about. I think about how I was raised, and specifically how I was raised to date and treat women and all of that stuff. And I also think about how other people in general were raised with regard to dating and treating people of the opposite sex. And like I mentioned earlier, my dad died when I was 16. So he didn't really impart a whole lot of wisdom regarding dating advice to on me to me or whatever. It's not like he was telling me things, even if he were to, even if he was giving me advice, it's not like it's something that I would have been able to understand being a young teenager that hadn't even started dating yet. I, which makes me wonder, when do people start dating? It's like, when do people have their first dates? Honestly, don't even remember mine. But I guess I don't know. I don't know. But that's another story for another time. But so dad didn't really give me too much with regard to dating. So that left a lot of the onus on my learning dating and how to treat women and things like that to my mother and to my older brother. Now, my brother, bless his heart, he really wasn't interested in giving me too much advice about dating. I don't really know if he really had too much advice to give on dating, but I'm not going to knock his hustle because he did give me great advice when it came to sex. And that advice still applies to this day. And without being as vulgar as he was when he initially gave me the advice, I'll just say that it involved me being aggressive. In essence, he was like, there's a time for casual love making, and then there's a time when you need to blow a chick's back out. And the majority of the time, blowing the back out is the way to go. Now, with that said, you kind of have to read the room and know your personnel to know which one is more appropriate with this particular person at that particular time. But most of the time, you need to blow the back out. And especially in the beginning, you need to blow the back out because that's what's going to keep them coming back more so than slow love making. So that's some valuable advice. Now it has nothing to do with relationships or dating, but it does kind of have something to do with relationships and dating because one of the things about relationships is to keep someone invested. And the way you keep somebody invested, if they know where to find some good loving, hey, they'll come back even when times are hard. Because I tell you what, shoot, there are women to this day that I cannot stand, but boy, I think fondly of them when it comes to that department. And shoot, a couple of them, if they called me tomorrow and said, "Yo, can I come through?" I'd be like, "Yeah, okay, okay, yeah." Anyway, so that was the extent of his teaching. So the two men, the two most important men in my life, really had nothing to contribute to like treating to how to treat a woman, how to date a woman, and all of that stuff. So that left the relationship stuff to moms. Now, and before I get to moms, I can also say that my friends had advice, but you can't trust. you can't trust advice from other teenagers. Other teenagers, especially boys, they lie about their own experiences. They have all of this advice and stuff like that. And half of it's lying about stuff that they claim that they did, but didn't actually do what he did to her, but really didn't happen and stuff. And the thing about teenagers is that when they tell the stories about their own dating experiences, it's like a 99.999% success rate. No little boy is ever going to say, yeah, man, that chick took me. She took advantage of me. She beat me. Not beat me literally, but she beat me. She took me for my money or whatever. She promised me all this stuff and used me and all of this and all of that. They'll make up stories, even if they did get took to the curb, taken to the curb. They'll still make up stories and be like, nah, she didn't dump me. I dumped her when she booted you to the curb and stuff like that. So you can't even listen to what kids say because basically little boys, they basically liars, especially when it comes to like their interactions with women and stuff like that. It's the closest thing that you'll get to the truth is if a boy walks over to a woman and a woman, girl, I shouldn't say woman, and the girl shoots him down and he comes back over and you ask him how it went, he'll say something like, fuck that bitch, which is the closest thing to the truth. That lets you know that she turned him down. But instead of saying she turned me down, that'll be his response. And the only reason he'll really give you that response is because shoot, you watched him go over there and get shot down. If you hadn't been there and if you didn't see it for yourself, he probably would have lied and said, shoot, he got a number and all of this stuff and he called her but just didn't like her and all that stuff. Anyway, the point is taking advice from kids, that's not the move. So going back to mom and all of that, mom taught me to like treat women like queens. Mom taught me, and me and Reggie talked about this a little bit in past episodes. Mom taught me not to let a woman lift a finger. That whole thing where, if you're walking and there's a puddle on the ground, you take your coat off and throw it over the puddle so her shoes won't get wet and all of that stuff. Now, I'm not going to say that's bad advice, but you have to keep in mind the source sometimes. And my mother, she's been married 3 times, and I've seen her go through several other bad relationships. So I'm thinking that her experiences might have shaped her view and thusly led to her giving me the advice to to go be over, beyond, and above, whatever, however that phrase goes, when it comes to treating women. Uh, so I'm not, again, I'm not saying that she was wrong, but I will say this: she left out one important part to that whole thing when talking about relationships and stuff like that. She told me all the things that I should be doing, but she never really told me what to expect. It's like for the coats that I'm taking to the dry cleaners to keep these women's shoes dry, it's like, what should I be getting for that? Should I be getting anything? It's like, surely she didn't feel like her youngest son like shouldn't have any expectations of a woman that he's with, or did she? I don't know. Whether she did or not, that led me down like a road of relationships where I gave and gave and gave and got little and little and little. And it's interesting how that one little piece of information that she left out, that mess has been plaguing me to now. What, I'm 50 years old. It's like, who knew? She didn't know, I guess. Anyway, but it also makes me wonder like what others were taught by their parents, specifically their fathers. Again, since we're talking about Father's Day, what fathers are teaching their sons, and more importantly for me, because I'm dating women, what they're teaching their daughters. And shoot, that's for those that even have their fathers in their lives, to be honest. I will say this: having dated women with their dads in their lives and women without their dads in their lives, I don't really know which one is better, honestly. Yeah, because it seems like it would be, well, I'll just put it like this. At first glance, it would seem like it would be the woman with the fathers in their lives that would have the obvious advantage. You know, they would have the inside track when it came to like having productive relationships and all of that stuff. Because let me think. If a woman has her dad in her life, he can like show her like that they are decent men in this world, and thus she won't be as bitter and take the first man that comes along in her life, that dude to be a dog, and then that'll shape her entire opinion of men. And then I'll wind up dating her while she's bitter, and then I'll have to pay for all the bitterness that she has because of all the other things that other men in the past had done to her. And then I'll get frustrated. And anyway, anyway. But in several cases with women that I've dated who have had their dads in their lives, their dads have set their expectations so high of what a man should be and what a man should do that it's hard and sometimes impossible to live up to those expectations. It's dangerous to expect a man to treat a woman that he's known for like a few months the way that her dad would. And considering that a dad to give his daughter the world and not expect anything in return, that'll lead some women to believe that the men that they're dating should do that same thing too, because a lot of women want a man like their dad, again, assuming that they have their dad in their lives. Now, now, guys that you date, ladies, they're not really going for that level of spoiling you, which is basically what it is. Your father spoil you because that's the benefit of being a father. You get to spoil your daughter, and that gets women expecting men to spoil them as well. Not all women, obviously, but my experiences have shown me that many of them do. And men aren't necessarily going for that. I mean, they'll spoil you short term, but it kind of wears a little thin in long term. And they'll especially spoil you in the short term if you fine. But I tell you what, fine wears off over time. And boy, that spoiling wears off over time too. And then you just stuck. And then he goes out and does other things. And then next thing you know, you're getting divorced after 20 years. Anyway, so the advice that I would give fathers raising daughters, and let me just say, I understand the irony in my giving advice to fathers in general. So just know, I know, but still, as someone who's dating daughters with fathers in their lives, that's the perspective that I'm coming from. So I can give fathers advice in that way. And the advice that I would give is to just tell your daughter not to look for someone like you, dad. It's like somebody that'll do everything for them and ask nothing of them. But tell your daughters that love is a give and take, because it is. And tell them that they need to focus on giving as much as taking. And always, and tell your daughters to always keep that balance in mind, because it can go both ways. If you're giving more than you're taking, that's a problem too. So, fathers, you're welcome. So that brings me to fathers and the sons. Me giving more advice. Again, you're welcome. Say, and I don't really know if this is advice more so than it's more of a statement or whatever, but fathers seem to be more open with their sons about all things from sex to relationships to expectations. Dads even talk to their kids about like the not too good things like cheating and stuff like that. Dads treat their sons in a lot of ways like they should be treating their daughters. It's like while dads will seem to do everything to like coddle their daughters and to hide their flaws from their daughters, dads seem to do a better job of showing their sons that they're actually human. In fact, they show their sons that you can be human and flawed, but you can still be a decent person. And so while some dads are trying to teach their daughters to expect perfection, even though they don't say expect perfection, the way that they treat their daughters kind of says expect perfection. It's and that's why so many daughters have such lofty perceptions of their dads, and how why they project that onto the men that they date, who can't either fulfill that role or just choose not to fulfill that role. I mean, I I don't know. I like doing things. I like doing things for women. I like doing things for people in general. I don't like when there are expectations placed on me as to what I should be doing. And that's the way that a lot of men feel in this day and age. And more men are speaking out about that. And that goes back to that war that I talked about between men and women that I referenced in a few podcast episodes ago. Go back and listen. Yeah, go back and listen. Anyway, but again, that's for those with actual fathers in their lives. But again, I have to say, I do understand the irony in all of it because I do not have any children. I don't want any children. I am so thankful that I've gotten through this life without having any children, no mistakes, no slip ups. I am perfectly fine with that. All I want is just somebody who will put me in the tub when I get old. Let me just say, shame on some of you parents who have kids just so they can take care of you when they get old. It's like for some people, that's their primary motivation in having children is just to have somebody to take care of you when you get old. And I know that's like a big thing in Asian countries. I think in China at one point, to control the population, they were mandating that you could have only one child. And and in some cases, if the child were a female, they would abort the child because they would want a male because the male would, I guess, be more equipped to take care of his parents. I don't get how any of that works. And that flies in the face of me guilting my daughters into taking care of me and putting me in the tub when I get old. But over in China, it's a different cultural thing. I don't know. Don't really care. I just want somebody to put me in the tub when I'm old, and I didn't want to have to raise a kid for 18 plus years. And you know it's more than 18 years because the kids always come back. So that's a lot of investment to put into having somebody just to put you in the tub. But on that note, again, happy belated Father's Day to all the dads out there, and especially to you all doing the best that you can to take care of your kids, and not just doing the best that you can, but actually succeeding in taking care of your kids. Um, yeah, so yeah. Anyway, datingwhileadulting.com. Hit me up at Michael at datingwhileadulting.com if you want to talk. I'll read all of those things and I'll get back to you. I'll talk about it whenever I feel like talking about it. But yeah, hit me up. You know, go to all the other places: YouTube, Instagram. I don't know, man. Just go to datingwhileadulting.com to see everything that you want to see, and subscribe, download if you're on iTunes. Give me a thumbs up. Give me a comment. And all of that stuff that you hear at the end or beginning or middle of every podcast that you listen to. It might be new to some of you all because, like I said, this caters to people who are just discovering podcasts. So, hey, thank you. And say goodbye, Reggie. Reggie didn't say anything, so I'll say bye for him. Goodbye.